welcome back. It's day 3 of Hormones and Women's Wellness Summit, and I'm your host, Bridgit Danner. Happy to be here with you, and we've got specific conditions related to women's health continuing today. We're going to be talking about thyroid, a really major concern for women, sex drive, anxiety, PCOS, and then methylation. What do I mean, methylation? What is methylation? Well, you have to watch to find out. So lots of good experts today, and enjoy. I'll talk to you after this interview. Jen Wittman, welcome to the summit.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
Happy to have you. So we are going to be talking about a thyroid-friendly lifestyle. But first, tell us where you live and what you do.
Yeah, so I live in Sebastopol, California, which most people can't spell what that word is. So it's in Sonoma County. It's in the beautiful wine country of Sonoma County. And I'm a holistic health expert, a thyroid specialist, an autoimmune specialist, a chef, and an author. But basically my job is to help women improve their lives and their health.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
That's a good start. So you have your own thyroid story that kind of, once you had the diagnosis, you kind of unwound things and realized things afterward. But you want to kind of sum up your own journey for our listeners and viewers?
Yeah, it's pretty intense. It started after a pretty traumatic car accident. My husband and I were hit by a semi-truck. And, the stress and trauma, I learned this later, but it was like the stress and trauma from that accident really led to a decline in my health. So, after years of just seeing this decline in my health, I end up getting pregnant. And after delivering my son, I end up getting thrown into like a life just filled with one symptom after another, and I just couldn't get a handle on any of these symptoms. But when I was going to the doctor, they were telling me everything's fine. It's normal. You're just stressed. You need to get over the accident. You're a new mom. There were just all these excuses as to why I was okay, even though I was feeling like something's really wrong. So, like my hair was falling out and I was starting to gain weight. I was extremely fatigued and overwhelmed. And then I had all these new food allergies all the time that I hadn't had before. And I just felt like I'm a mess. I couldn't recognize myself. So after seeing, doctor after doctor, specialist after specialist, and everyone telling me I was normal, I just got super frustrated and fed up. And I decided I wanted to take my health back into my own hands. Because really, I just felt like I was a shadow of my normal self, and I didn't have the energy to do anything, take care of my son or hang out with my friends or engage with my husband. I just couldn't do anything. I'd seen 12 different doctors. I had been in the ER twice. And that's actually kind of exceptional for me because I am a little bit of a hippy dippy and I had my baby at home. And so for me, I avoid the hospital if I can. And so for me to end up in the ER twice and basically beg to go to the emergency room because I was in so much pain and having so many symptoms told me something was wrong. So finally, I found a doctor, and I wasn't even at the doctor for me. I went to a doctor for my son who had all these symptoms that were very similar to mine. And that doctor who was looking at my son said, I know what's going on with you, and I'm just going to give you a simple blood test to show you what it is. And plain as day, there it was. I had Hashimoto's, which is an autoimmune thyroid condition. So from that point on, I feel like I was really fortunate because my doctor didn't want to go the medication route right away. He said, with different dietary and lifestyle changes, you can reverse this yourself. So he said, let's try that first before putting you on medication. And at the time, I didn't really realize what a gift that was. But he kind of sent me off on my way and said, eat a couple of these things. But I really wanted to research and get into it and understand why you could reverse this without medication or with limited medications, because everyone I had known who had ever had a thyroid condition was on 2, 3, 4, 5 medications. So I learned everything I could and just change my diet, change my lifestyle, ended up reversing Hashimoto's naturally, and decided to make this my life's work. I just felt so alone when I was in the middle of the struggle, and it became my mission to get resources and real help to other women who are desperately seeking solutions to, these conditions. So now I teach women to reverse thyroid disease naturally without medication, or, if people are on medication, a lot of my clients, I help them wean off or eliminate it completely.
Okay. Yeah, and out of curiosity, when you saw those 12 doctors earlier, did anybody suspect thyroid, do some inadequate thyroid testing, or what happened?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. It was inadequate thyroid testing, because when I was in the ER both times, they said, well, we're going to check your thyroid. So there was a suspicion that, it could be due to a thyroid condition, but they only gave me the basic panel. So they never checked the thyroid antibodies, and I was completely in the normal ranges when you look at, the basic thyroid panel. And, the ranges for a lot of these tests are so grand. Mm-hmm. You have to be really, really sick to be on either side of those. So yeah, it was just inadequate testing, but there was a suspicion.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's so common, this inadequate testing, so I think it's important to talk about. And, I think some women might suspect they have a thyroid problem, but not know enough to really advocate for which test to run. So I think we'll maybe be covering a bit more of this on another talk, but when we say just full thyroid panel, we want to always include the thyroid antibodies. And would you say to have it interpreted in a more functional way or more?
Absolutely.
Okay. Because
I definitely recommend functional and integrative doctors for this kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us more about thyroid disorder and how common it is, what the types are. I feel like it's on the rise. What do you think?
Oh, for sure. I mean, first, before I was ever diagnosed, I didn't even really know I had a thyroid. And then I was like, what is that? What are we talking about here? And so I was shocked to find out how common it is. And just in America, we have I think the American Thyroid Association says something like 20 million Americans have some form of thyroid disease. And obviously most of them are women. And I think it's 200 million people worldwide have some form of thyroid disease. And I think it's 300 million people worldwide plus have some sort of thyroid or autoimmune condition. Okay. So, and what I found so crazy about this after doing all the research was that up to 60% of people don't actually know that they have a thyroid condition. They just have these symptoms. And I feel like we've gotten into a culture where we just sort of accept symptoms or just accept aging. Oh, yeah, I'm just getting older. This is supposed to happen. That's supposed to happen. But really, you're supposed to be vibrant and energized, pretty much till the end. If you're keeping the machine well oiled,
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's so easy to say, well, I'm just getting older, or everybody's tired, or look how busy my life is. But yeah, especially for women, we can tend to say that.
Well, we push it all aside, right? We're taking care of everyone else and not always ourselves. And we just oh, yeah. I've got this symptom. Okay, I'll just push through it. But then, it piles up really fast.
Well, tell us the range of symptoms.
Yeah, so here's the crazy thing, and this is why it's so hard to diagnose. But there are over 300 common symptoms attributed to thyroid conditions. So, I won't list them all today. But let's talk in generalities. And it also depends on what kind of thyroid condition you have. So if you're dealing with hypothyroidism, you might feel very sluggish and very fatigued. You might have weight gain, depression. Things like that are sort of the basic things that we see with hypothyroidism. Hyperthyroidism, you get really panicky. You might have extreme weight loss, hair loss, anxiety, feel overwhelmed, shaky hands, things like that. But then if you're dealing with an autoimmune thyroid condition like Hashimoto's, you can actually have both sets of symptoms, and you can get volleyed back and forth between hyper and hypo. So you could add to that list, food allergies and leaky gut and weakened muscles and just those aches, those kind of weird aches and pains that, carpal tunnel is often associated with autoimmunity or thyroid imbalance. There's just too many to list. But what I love about functional medicine is that when you come in with these lists of what seems like random symptoms, they're looking at the whole picture and they're seeing how they all play into each other.
Okay. So one thing you said in your book that we can talk about later is that you are not your symptoms. So we're listing off all these symptoms.
Yeah.
But once you get the diagnosis or even beforehand, your protocol really includes like starting with self-love, which I think we've talked about a couple times on this summit already, which is pretty cool. So tell us first, like what happens when you're, like I read in your book, you're a new mom and like you can't clean the house and your husband's like, what are you doing? And tell us maybe about some of that depression, and I think, as you call it, like self-loathing that can come with the disease, and then how to get out of it. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's start with, these thyroid symptoms or things related to thyroid imbalances. They start off kind of slowly. It's not like just one day you just wake up and it's like all of a sudden I have all these things. It's like the slow burn. And so one day you might feel like I'm just not as energized, or I'm just not, I'm more tired all the time, feeling sluggish, or you start noticing you're gaining all this weight, or you're losing your hair. And then, so you don't really notice, like, this is something I have to get on top of right away. And like I mentioned before, a lot of us women tend to push things aside while we're busy taking care of everybody else. So what happened to me is that all of these things started happening and doctors were kind of blowing it off. And I was starting to feel like a failure. It was like, some of the doctors sort of accused me of being a hypochondriac and just coming in with symptom after symptom. So I started to internalize that, thinking, well, what is wrong with me? Why can't I get up? Why are all these other new moms out there pushing the strollers and happy and on play dates? And I'm feeling really panicky about leaving my house, about taking care of my kid. I'm feeling really overwhelmed. And that was just not like me. I just couldn't even recognize myself at that point. I was, before, the pregnancy and the Hashimoto's, I was a type A go-getter. I was out there. I didn't mind stress at all. So this really did sort of a trick on my mind when I realized, like, I was super sick. And is it me? Is it all in my head? Am I just a failure? What is my problem? And so when I was having all this dialogue with myself, I just started to turn it inward and really beat myself up and get really depressed, because I just thought I was failing everybody all the time, and that I wasn't a good mom, wasn't a good wife. I couldn't work at that time. And part of that had to do with the accident I had been in and the injuries to that. But I just kind of felt like a loser. And so for me, that emotional weight was really heavy. And the depression just kind of got in there. And so what I learned, and why a lot of times I feel, and this is a bold statement to make, but I really feel like getting a diagnosis like Hashimoto's is a true gift, because if you want to change it, you have to stop. You have to assess your life. You have to see where all the imbalances are in your personal life, your emotional life, your life with your relationships, your family, your work, your nutrition, your fitness. Where are things out of balance? And when you start assessing that and you start doing these things that really nourish your body and really help you to love yourself, all of a sudden the illness starts to go away. All of a sudden the symptoms are eliminated. The condition is reversed. So I'm a huge advocate of loving yourself and using a lot of self-care to reverse these conditions.
I love it, because I think we try to make things so complicated, and so many like medications and supplements and rules, but you're just starting with this basic thing like self-awareness, see the imbalances. That's really great.
Well, I'd like to add, one thing, like I mentioned before, I was type A. So when I got the diagnosis, like, I just went right into the research, and then I wanted to do every suggestion. I wanted to, everything they said I had to do, I did it. And I got super overwhelmed. And that was, that's another thing. Then you beat yourself up because you're not perfect, right? And so through this process, what I learned was less is more, and taking care of yourself is the most important thing.
That's great. Yeah, and I've worked in the fertility field for a long time, and I see that too. It's like the chasing for advice, and like all the advice is conflicting, and then you're overwhelmed, and then you want to stop everything. And so I think this is a lot of great wisdom for especially us type A women. And speaking of, you said in the book that there's a thyroid type you kind of identified in yourself and you've seen over and over, and I thought that was fascinating. And you also said something From an emotional and energetic perspective, thyroid dysfunction is a communication disorder. I thought that was so interesting. Tell us more about those two things.
Okay, so in terms of the thyroid type, I just started to see that all these women coming in to see me were almost exactly like me. They were. I just could recognize it. When we started talking, we were all living these same experiences, right? And so it was type A. It was perfectionism. It was we like to control things because nobody can do it better than we can, or we don't want anybody to do it. We don't want to ask for help, either because we like to control things or because we believe that would show weakness, or that we feel uncomfortable asking for help because a lot of women who came in, I luckily did not ever suffer from this because the way my parents raised me was insane. But I always thought I deserved the best. But a lot of women, I believe I'm a queen and I should be eating bonbons every day. So, I never had that sort of thing where I didn't feel worthy of people's help or love. But I do see that a lot come in, that there's a worthiness issue, and it just feels like, in fact, I had a coaching call recently, a group coaching call, and one of the women, she brought us all to tears, but she was just saying well, if I have these other people help, then I just feel like I haven't done my job. I haven't done the best. I haven't been the best mom, and I'm not perfect. And it was her realization, coming at her, and then we were all crying. So, I think it's just echoes of things we can all understand, right? We're busy, and so a lot of people with thyroid conditions seem to be over busy, and they push through stress, and they don't honor when those signals come up that say, whoa, slow down, or I don't want to make this decision, but you do it anyway because you're supposed to, or you should, or just so many things around self-love, and just I don't deserve this. I need to work for everybody else and not myself. So I saw that was really the type.
Okay. And how about this communication disorder? I'm thinking, the thyroid is in the throat. I don't think we've covered that yet. The throat chakra. So tell us how to maybe overcome this. What is this communication disorder, and how do we overcome it?
Well, it's really interesting when you look at ancient medical systems, traditional Chinese medicine or Ayurveda, they don't even have words for thyroid dysfunction. There's no such thing. There's just no such thing. What they see is it's an imbalance in your throat chakra of where you're not speaking up for yourself. You're not being true to yourself. You're not using your voice. Another thing I saw with thyroid types is that people avoided conflict. They just did not like conflict at all. And so what they would do is squash those feelings down instead of saying to somebody, you hurt my feelings when you said that, or, I don't appreciate that your opinion, this is how I feel about something. And so it's a communication. Thyroid dysfunction in other medicine traditions is a disorder of a blockage of energy in your throat because you're not actually communicating the truth of yourself to the world.
That's pretty deep. I recognize some of myself in this type for sure. And, I think as women, we're often taught to be nice and fit in and not speak up for yourself. So maybe that's partly why it's increasing in the culture. There could be lots of other reasons too, but I'll throw that in the hat. It's like that repression, isn't healthy of your true spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. So you talk about the 3 phases of healing. So we'll get more into the kind of the healing protocol now, but let's talk about these 3 phases.
Okay. Yeah. So I over the years identified kind of 3 phases people fall into when they're starting their healing journey or in their healing journey. And there's, the caterpillar, the cocoon, and the butterfly. And the caterpillar is the one who is really sick. You have all the symptoms going on. You're not finding the right help. You're dealing with a lot of different symptoms at the same time. You haven't identified the root cause of the situation. And basically, you're the caterpillar who needs a lot of substance and nourishment to grow and to start feeling better. So what that leaves, once you get that information and once you know what's going to help you, you kind of go into a cocoon cocoon phase, which is what I found in myself, that once I figured out the pieces that were going to help me heal, I kind of had to block the world out a little bit and go inside and just really focus. And my main focus became taking care of myself. And I had to have some really tough talks with my family. And one thing I haven't mentioned yet is that a lot of people hide this condition from others. First of all, you can't see it, so that it makes it easy to hide. And that's what makes it so hard, is that people can't see everything that's going on with you and why it's so debilitating. So if you were to put it in visual terms, you would look like a person who's in a full body cast, because every single thing's going wrong with your body all at one time, right? But people don't see that. So number one, because people don't see that and they think that you're faking it, or that you're using it as an excuse, or that it's all in your head, you start to hide it and just, suck it up and push through. So the cocoon phase, though, is really when you've realized, you've learned the steps of what you need to do in order to heal, and you've made that choice to heal. And you've gone to your friends and family and said, look, this is what's really going on with me in the inside. I know you can't see it, but this is how I feel. This is how I experience it. I want you to imagine with me what it would feel like to not be able to hardly get up out of bed in the morning, and then have to make everybody lunch and get everybody out the door, and then get to work and have a boss who's on me and all these things. Imagine that if I was doing that in a full body cast, what would that feel like? And trying and get your family members to understand, and then make really clear requests on what they can do to support you. So what I did myself was I kind of came up with my healing plan at the time, and I came to my husband and I said, this is why I've been acting crazy. Okay. And then I have this thing. I found out this about my condition. I know I have to do this to start feeling better, and I need your help. I can't do this all myself, and I need you to take over more responsibility in the house so that I have all that time to start taking care of myself. So cocoon phase, you've gone in and you're taking care of yourself. And that's the phase that you're really healing, right? And you're transforming on the inside. And so butterfly phase is you really don't have symptoms anymore. You're living very vibrantly, energized. You've come out of the cocoon. You've come out of this healing process, and you're back to normal. You're living your normal life. Yeah, things might, every once in a while, you might have a symptom flare or something, but it's nothing that's holding your life back. So those are the three phases.
Okay, perfect. And so let's talk a little bit about diet. So I thought it was really great that you share your background as a chef, and you studied in Italy where there's tons of gluten.
Yeah, delicious gluten. Delicious
gluten. So, you just as much as anybody else getting a first diagnosis, like the idea of changing your diet was probably daunting. So maybe tell us your experience and your philosophy on how to go about changing the diet when you get the diagnosis.
Yeah, so my experience was I did not want to change my diet. Like you said, I was a chef. I lived in Italy. I love glutinous foods, but also I was a Midwesterner. I mean, I'm originally from the Midwest, and we eat biscuits and gravy and cheese on bread and bread on cheese. And so all of those things I did not want to change. And I would say I stayed sick an extra at least year and a half, because at the time I was unwilling to change the diet. So I changed every other thing in my world except for the diet. I was like, can I do this without changing the diet? No. The answer is no. And so finally when I realized okay, I do feel better, but nothing's real. I'm not moving the needle one way or another, really. I decided to make the commitment to change the diet. And instead of making it I'm going to be perfect, I'm going to change the diet all at once, I decided to do one step at a time. So I just slowly started eliminating the foods that we say to eliminate in order to start feeling better. And so I just added one after another. And the next thing I knew, and not only was I feeling better, but I didn't notice really that I had changed my entire diet. And so then it just became a very natural part of my life.
Yeah, and that year and a half, and then there's probably some more months after that. I think that's somewhat normal. And it's tricky, I think, when you get a diagnosis or, you're trying to change your health. Because when you try to make radical changes, it's stressful, and then, you feel deprived. And so when my clients are changing their diet, and they take something out, and then they put it back in, and I'm very forgiving. I'm like, you know what, this is pretty normal, it's like, but the thing is when you are having a cleaner diet, you do feel better. And so if you come back off the wagon, here it comes again. I'm not feeling so great again. The symptoms are coming back. So I do think just trying things, whether it's one at a time or, I do some like short-term cleanses in a group, it just teaches you and it gets you the awareness. And then ultimately, I'm sure you feel like I do, like once it's become fully adopted, you're still eating very delicious things. You're still very happy. You don't feel deprived. Tell us what you eat nowadays.
So I pretty much follow a paleo-ish diet. It's very veggie heavy. I love juices and smoothies. And so, in the end, it's just a whole foods diet. And so we have taken a girl from the Midwest who lived on Taco Bell and Gatorade for most of her life, okay, and turned her into somebody who puts vegetables in that cart and all kinds of stuff. So, I felt so much better. And I was just telling somebody the other day, I would never go back to gluten even if I could eat it. Even if that was a smart idea for me, if it was okay, I don't think I would really go back and add that in long term because I feel better than I did in my 20s because I wasn't ever eating real whole food. That's not how I was raised, at the time. I was raised in an era of convenience food. So I think it's just important to take the steps so that you'll just feel it. You'll just start feeling you feel better. And last night I went out to a restaurant and was glutened, actually. This person the waiter told me that this dish was gluten-free, ate the whole thing, came back and he was like, I'm sorry, he said, does gluten-free mean dairy-free? And I said, no. And let me tell you, I had a situation last night when I came home and so that's my key. I keep it clean because I appreciate, keeping my diet clean now because I feel so much better. But when something like that happens, you really feel what this does to your body. And I think that's something important that people should know too. Is as you start doing it, if you try and add things back in, you can test it against yourself to see how is this making me feel? But I'm always big on there's no shame. We can't be perfect. You go out to a party, you accidentally have that thing. All right. So start with the next bite, start with the next meal, don't beat yourself up about it.
Yeah, and sometimes, I didn't have gluten for 3 or 4 months really consistently, and then I accidentally had a lot of gluten like you did, and it didn't really hit me right away. So then I was like, oh, maybe I can. But then I had it a couple more times, and then I'm more of like a slow burn. Then it hit me, and then it took a while to recover from all that. So then I've been careful again.
Right. Well, I'm taking this great probiotic. I'm really loving it, and I'm seeing this major healing with leaky gut. And I went on a cheese bender over the holidays and so I wasn't having any reactions to it. But then as time went on and I continued to just shove cheese in my face, I started to notice the things too. So then I was like, right. These are sometimes foods. And now I can go to a party and enjoy it and just really live my normal life, but I don't need to do it every day. And so that it's moderation, right? The lesson there is moderation.
Yeah. We all need to learn our personal diets and what works for us. And we learn that with trial and error.
Right.
So tell us some of the self-care practices that you do and that you promote.
Yeah. I do a lot of things. So, because now I'm a self-care junkie. Once you get started taking care of yourself, you're like, this is awesome. I want to keep doing this. And then now I just block people out in my time. So I have all this self-care. So I dry brush. I love doing that. It really wakes me up in the morning. I use that in place of coffee. So when, the thing that most of my clients want to punch me in the face for is when I say, I really think you should go off coffee if you want to have a lot of energy. And then they're like, what? And they get really mad at me. And then they try it and it works. So I always say your replacement can be dry brushing. And people get addicted to it. It's great. It's great for the lymphatic system. It really wakes you up. It helps you eliminate toxins. So I like to dry brush. I use the sauna. We actually invested in a sauna because it was less expensive than going to the gym all the time to use it. And that was my excuse to not.
I want to hear that math. Yeah, I need to bring that math into my life.
And we don't have space in our house to have it. So we just have it out on our covered patio. So, you come up with solutions, right? But I just have a small one. So I do a sauna a few times a week. I do a lot of journaling, and this goes to using your voice. And this was one of the most healing methods that, I discovered through this process, through this journey. I never liked to write before, and here I've written a book now. But that all came from journaling as an exercise for a way to express feelings that I didn't have the words for at the time. So, when you do want to avoid conflict and you're not quite ready to stand up to that person and tell them what your needs are, at least write them down in a book. Take a piece of paper and just write out all those feelings that you're having, that you're struggling dealing with, because all of a sudden it kind of gets up and out of your body and you've released it, but also it helps you find the words and empowers you to go take that step to say that to that person, or to say, here's a need I'm not having met here and I need your help. So I love journaling. I think it is super powerful. What else for self-care? I do aromatherapy. I love that at night. I have myself in bed at a certain time so that I sleep my best. I wake up before the sun a lot, and part of my self-care is meditation and yoga and a little fitness. And really, I do a lot of that within just a half hour. You can get a lot done in terms of 20 minutes of meditation or 15 minutes of meditation and 15 minutes of yoga can really set your day up. So I'm a busy mom. I'm a small business owner. I have a lot going on too. And so it's not just like, oh, I'm this woman who can just fill my day with self-care. I really plan it into my day and get the biggest bang for the buck out of the things I do. So those are some of the things I do.
Yeah, and I want to talk a little bit more about that time management. I think you call it ninja time management. And I love that you mentioned it's like you're just as busy as any other mom, working mom, and we all have the same hours in the day. So it's just a matter of like fitting it in and planning it in. Tell us more about how you do that.
Yeah. So what I love to teach people to do, because once I did this, it changed my life, is to look at your schedule and sort of only put in those non-negotiable things first, and which are, work or when your kids are at school or whatever it is. Put in those things you just cannot negotiate on, and have everything else outside of your calendar first, and then look and see where all these kind of time gaps open up. And then what you do, the next thing you put in, after the non-negotiables, are self-care. Self-care comes second, and I would say in reality it comes first. But when you look at your thing, you can't just do self-care and maybe not go to work. I guess that's what people keep telling me. So because we have to go to work, you do the work, but then you put in all the self-care that you want. And not only the self-care, the things that bring you passion in life, like hobbies you want to pursue, or just something that makes you feel good, whether it's doing one of those cool new adult coloring books that are out, or just having time to read a book or relax, put all that stuff in. Then if you're seeing that there are commitments or to-dos that you have to do, or something you've committed to, see if there's a way to get out of a commitment. If it's not something that brings you a lot of pleasure, if it's just something that you feel like you should do, see if you can change that commitment or have somebody else do it for you. Or and also just see where you can come together with people in your community, whether it be your family or your neighbors or your coworkers, and share responsibilities. In the summers out here, at least, people will trade on doing lawn mowing, let's say, and that would free up somebody for an hour of time. Or you can have a friend who uses the same dry cleaner as you, go and pick that up for you, and that gives you a couple extra minutes to go walk outside and just refresh yourself. Or you can swap childcare. You can do a carpool. There's just all of these different things that you can do to make your schedule better, so that there's more time for you, there's more time for healing, and there's more time for things that you want to do in your life. So I'm a big advocate of kind of blocking it and making that commitment in the schedule, because I think a lot of times we say, oh, I'm going to get up and exercise tomorrow, I'm going to start doing that. But we don't, if we don't put it in as, no, from this time to this time every day, I exercise.
Yeah, I want to share a bit of my strategy too, because I'm a bit of a time management ninja as well. So when I like to look at my week in the beginning of the week and see when I have meetings and appointments and stuff. And then I look at my yoga studio schedule and I like, okay. And I actually put in my schedule which classes I'm going to go to. And then also like, I like to do a lot of my like me time, like when my son's at school and gone. So in the weekends, you know, your time can get kind of eaten up, taking care of everybody else, doing errands, and then it's like, ugh, you know, you didn't really do much for yourself. So I really like to sneak in as much as I can, like during, this is a nice thing about being self-employed, right? You can kind of sneak in, not everyone can do this, but everyone can, you know, find their own way. So I like to try to sneak it in when I have the hours to myself. That way I know, like, okay, during the week I went to yoga and I had my massage appointment and I did my journal. And then on the weekend, I'm ready for the weekend. I'm ready for my family because I filled myself up during the week.
Absolutely. And I should add massages to that list because
let's put massages on that list.
You know, sometimes people think that's a luxury, but it's so good for the whole nervous system and calming everything down and just clearing your head. I mean, it's not. It's self-care. It is healthcare. Let's call it that, you know. It's not just a luxury. And to people who aren't self-employed like us, where we have a little more time flexibility in our schedule, what I recommend, because my workday is always so busy, I don't always get self-care time in the middle of the day, is that I put myself to sleep kind of early at 9 so that I can be up at 5 o'clock in the morning. And it does two things. First of all, it gives me a better night's sleep. And secondly, it gives me 2 hours in the morning before my son wakes up to do a lot of self-care. So if you can't do it, you know, in the middle of the day, like some of us can, it's great to do it first thing in the morning because then it's also off your to-do list. It's not like oh, I have to do this. You wake up in the morning like, yeah, I get to do this before everybody wakes up. But it's also nice to get it done in the beginning of the day because then you don't have it hanging over your head where you haven't done it yet.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I'm not super consistent yet with the early mornings. Some mornings I'll get up early, but if I don't, then I'll say, okay, well, you know, I slept in this morning, but like before I start work, kind of like you said, it's not like it's a bad thing, but I'll be like today I was like, you were doing 10 minutes of meditation before you work because otherwise I'll get busy and I won't do it and I'll regret it. So better to do it and set the day. Well, this has been such a fun conversation. I want to hear a little bit more about your resources, but first, anything else we missed or that you want to do to sum it up?
No, just love yourself. I love you. Just love yourself. I think that's the key.
That's great. So, yeah, tell us about your website and your thyroid quiz.
Sure. You can get tons of resources over at my website. It's thyroidlovingcare.com. I talk about symptoms. I talk about, you know, kind of first steps over there, what you can talk to your doctor about, things like that. And then I have a blog called Your Best Thyroid Life, which is yourbestthyroidlife.com/blog. And that's where I just show people how thyroid disease doesn't have to define you. Yes, you have a condition and there are symptoms that go along with it, but you're not your symptoms. You are a mom. You are a friend. You like music. You like this or that. You know, you're not this collection of symptoms. So that's where we go and have fun. And so you can see me having fun on my explorations and also talking about just things that can help improve your life. But what I really love is for people to head over to freethyroidquiz.com because there you can have an assessment and see where you're falling in that thyroid healing type. Are you at caterpillar? Are you in the cocoon? Are you a butterfly? I hope you are. And what you do is you get a thyroid assessment and then a report for free with first steps of what you can do. And they're really easy, simple steps to get you started on your healing. But you also can discover, what to do to talk to your doctor, because a lot of doctors haven't been trained in this as fully as we would like. The traditional medical system doesn't give a ton of training on thyroid. They know how to medicate it, but they don't, they're not trained in nutrition a lot of times, or, everything, kind of all the lifestyle stuff around it. So what it does is it gives you some printout sheets you can bring to your doctor that lists out your symptoms and really gives them like step by step why this might be affecting you so that they will look further into the testing. And I say this because a lot of insurance companies won't let these doctors test the antibodies until you're already way out of range. But sometimes doctors can go around that if they see, in your symptoms that you really need to be checked. So this gives you like a handy dandy guide to bring into your doctor so you can get the test you need. So that's why I really love for people to go over to freethyroidquiz.com. And then through that, you'll get a series of 15 free coaching email sessions with me that really help you to heal and take your life back. So visit me there.
Yeah, I really love your philosophy, and thanks so much for being on the summit. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, this is Bridgit Danner again, and thanks for joining us for this interview. Remember, you can share and comment and ask questions on social media. If you have a friend you're thinking would have enjoyed a lecture for today, it's not too late to share it. Also, you can always go to any speaker's website if you got some information that you just want to know more about, you feel like it pertains to you. And otherwise, we will see you tomorrow. We'll be talking about life stages of hormones from fertility to perimenopause. Stay tuned.